Today, there are tens of millions of Xbox fans who've grown up with Halo, Fable, and Forza, unlocked mountains of achievements, and have both fragged and Netflixed with Xbox Live. But there was a time when that number was a lot smaller, back when Microsoft was still trying to establish themselves on the rocky shores of console gaming against entrenched enemies like Sony's PlayStation 2 and Nintendo's, well, they'd have something. The Xbox wasn't my first console, that was the Super Nintendo my parents bought for my brother and me in 1994, but it was the first console that felt made for me. The SNES is a fine system, don't get me wrong, but I wound up falling in love with the sophisticated gameplay, graphics, and storytelling that PC gaming offered instead. Among those games were titles made by Microsoft to sell both gamers and developers alike that Windows was the platform you should game on. I fell in love with games like Monster Truck Madness, Midtown Madness, and Age of Empires. When rumors swirled in the year 2000 that Microsoft was building a console that featured Intel brains, Nvidia graphics, and most importantly, a hard drive, making it essentially a PC in a box, I was sold. But that was a tough time for Microsoft. Bill Gates was handing the CEO crown over to Steve Ballmer, the company was still a year away from settling its antitrust case with the federal government, and before the relative stability of Windows XP, skeptics thought Xbox games would blue screen on you. For us optimistic ones, the first Xbox fanboys, we were looking forward to the most powerful console ever made. One that could bring formerly PC-exclusive experiences to a home console, and could bring PC hardware to genres it didn't really exist in, like sports games, platformers, and basically anything out of Japan. We fanboys hunkered down and learned about new graphical techniques that weren't possible on any other console, like real-time reflections, vertex shading, and bump mapping. We oohed and awed at early versions of Halo's Silent Cartographer and Team Ninja's gorgeous Dead or Alive 3. And we'd never ever need additional $35 memory cards, because not only would we have tons of space for game saves built in, we could rip our own music from CDs to use in game too. Of course there was that controller. The Duke was a monster, feeling like two plastic potatoes in your hands. But having never truly fallen in love with a console controller before, it was a damn good controller. If money were no object, I'd even buy the reboot for the Xbox One. I keep my Duke around as a reminder of my roots. Also, the smell of those memory card slots right out of the packaging was incredible, but maybe that was just me. The Xbox launched on November 15th, 2001, 3 days before the Nintendo GameCube, and retailed for $299.99. The console's branding was keyed to hardcore gamers with a black and acid green color scheme that ran through the product line. This led to games that came in distinct semi-translucent green keep cases at retail, as well as some pretty odd commercials.
It's 10 p.m., and I know where your children are.
My launch games were Halo, Project Gotham Racing, and Air Force Delta Storm, although Amped did show up a few days later. The Xbox had some solid titles in those first few months, but as great as Jet Set Radio Future and Morrowind were, it wasn't much commercially in the face of Grand Theft Auto 3's success exclusively on the PlayStation 2. Xbox Live, the ubiquitous online service, was still a year away. With a $500 million ad spend at launch, Microsoft sold all the Xboxes they could make that first holiday, but it could have been a lonely time if the Xbox was your only gaming platform. I do it all again in a heartbeat because the Xbox is the most excited I've ever been about a product launch ever. Nothing ever came close before or after. Microsoft sank a lot of money into the Xbox, and while it outsold the GameCube worldwide, the PS2 was far more successful. 4 years after releasing it, Microsoft was happy to bid adieu to their loss-leading first console when they launched the Xbox 360, a console that won hearts and minds around the world. Still, I'll never forget the winter of 2001 when Microsoft made a huge splash in the gaming world and never looked back.